Hi, I'm Movie Larification, and this is Alien Romul's movie. A group of space miners working at an abandoned corporation station infiltrate a scientific facility in search of valuable equipment. However, they encounter the most terrifying life form in the universe. The film takes place in the vast expanses of space. The company's reconnaissance probe in Enutan detects debris on the planet and retrieves one sample. Scientists examining this sample find a coiled xenomorph. The action is transferred to a mining colony, where a young orphan named Raine lives. She takes care of her flawed android brother named Andy, who was ordered by his father to take care of his sister before he died. However, it is Raine who is often forced to take care of him and restore him after failures with the help of a special key that she inserts into his mechanism. Raine tries to bring Andy back to normal and find out what kind of problem he has. Despite the end of the contract, the company Weyland does not want to let go of its workers as it is experiencing a shortage of personnel, so the contract is forcibly extended without the consent of the workers. Damn, Tyler's girl is reaching out to her with a business proposition. Together with their friends, they stumble upon an abandoned scientific station, which is in orbit. This station has cryogenic chambers left, and with their help on a simple cargo ship, you can get to the nearest inhabited planet, and to implement this plan, they need Andy, as he is an android created by the Weyland-Yutani Company. His skills and capabilities can play a key role in their endeavor. Raine, sticking to decency, soon agrees with the rest of the brigade. T and Tyler's sister and his cousin Bjorn with a friend. They head confidently to the orbital station, overcoming the clouds. Tyler reminds them that they have no more than 30 hours to looting before the station's orbit intersects with the trajectory of the asteroids, which could lead to disaster. Upon landing, it becomes clear that the station is in purge mode and gravity is turned off so that the debris can move freely. When they reach the stasis site, the marauders decide to turn on gravity to make their task easier. The chambers are short of cryogenic fuel, and the guys understand. This is only enough until halfway. They decide to use the maneuver to move the horse while they go about their business. The girls on the ship discuss rumors. Raine discovers that Kay is expecting a baby on her way to the lab, which turns out to be quite risky and aggressive. Attuned Bjorn informs Andy that androids are not allowed on Vaga. Raine was aware of this, but decided not to tell him about it. The robot states that he doesn't care if it's for Raine's good, then he'll stay. Soon the men enter the lab with a torn-apart android. BJURN finds a stun gun and threatens them. Andy the android grabs it to prevent the fall. Since something has broken through the hull of the stations on several levels, the men get to the locked room with scrapers, where samples are stored for research. They extract the cryogenic fuel cylinders after they are removed. The cylinders make a siren sound and the door locks, which does not allow Andy to open it. Raine realizes that they are trapped, and along with Novarosa writes for help. Along the way, she tries to break something to pass it on to Andy by inserting a device into Andy's ear canal for a while as it occurs, flashing in parallel due to the increase in tempera. Creepy creatures with hideous faces that have been hiding under the water begin to appear, and they attack BJORN, intending to grab his face. He manages to repel the attack using his weapon. However, Tyler finds himself in a more difficult situation when one of the creatures smaller than him rapes him orally. A comrade comes to the rescue using an electric shock and knocks down the face grip. Tyler also loses consciousness. Andy opens the door thanks to the new firmware, and the men manage to escape. The young men reach the next door and almost close it. However, one of the face grabbers catches up with Var by jumping on his face and entering into a symbiotic bond. Bjorn tries to save his girlfriend with the help of an electric shock, but Andy warns him that the blow will pull muscles and the tail of the rapping android can cause harm. The miners connect half of the carcass to the power source. Soon it turns out that the android in the hands warns the people that Navarre will no longer be able to save if they do not hurry, then they themselves will be in danger. Scientists conducted experiments on the aliens on the station, but when one of them reached the size of a full-fledged xenomorph, he wiped out all the personnel to stop it. Lead pills had to be used, after which acidic fluids began to leak from the body, damaging the skin and rendering the station unusable for further operation. Despite the warning, the group decides to try to save Navarre. Tyler uses cryofuel to freeze his face, and it really helps the grip loosen and he lets the girl go. She ends up in the rift, and once Neve comes to her senses, the hands warn that she is most likely already infected and a threat to Andy, so he blocks the exit, as allowing Corbin's habit is very risky. BJUan revives her with an electric shock and directs her to the truck, leaving her friends behind. Raine decides to reboot Andy. Meanwhile, Andy rushes after the fugitive, preventing Byrne from closing the doors, but the android does not make time, and they remain at the station while they are gone. The truck is started. A frightened Navi leaves the docking airlock and in the process begins to vomit with the help of a handheld X-ray. She scans the torso and notices an alien organism, Navarre, who throws convulsively in his hands, touching the control lever. As a result, the ship hurtles along the station and the embryo bursts out, tearing open his chest from the inside and spraying Corbin with blood. This moment causes him to hit the station's superstructure, causing an explosion, bumping into a Navora with a parasite that just... When the ship flies into the cargo bay, it causes a short-term depressurization. On the station, until the doors close, the others try to make sense of what is happening via intercom, while the collision changes the station's orbit. The time before the asteroid belt is limited and Raine Styler has only about an hour to get to Corbin and rush on his way. At the same time, primarily caring for the well-being of the corporation. The androids decide that Ruck will help the survivors get to the ship, and in return, they will deliver. Japan liquid samples obtained at the station. At this time, people come across rooms filled with face grabs. Andy reports that these creatures react to sounds and heat. Raine suggests raising the temperature to 36 degrees to mask their heat signatures and then acting fast and quiet. And from the darkness came a noise as the parasite was reincarnated into a cocoon, and BJ Uaran, being electrocuted by the alien, responded with acid spit and died. Opens the door just as the xenomorph emerges from the cocoon. Well, why did you hatch do? The girl, before collapsing down, the fall noise transmitted to Tyler's earpiece attracts attention. Facepatch forces the trio to flee hastily. They manage to get to the cargo lock where Kenako Andy is waiting. Noticing Xenomorph leaves the girl in the dark, and as a result, she is taken away something unpleasant. In a fit of emotion, Raine lashes out at her foster brother and then asks about his main task. After reprogramming, the android first thinks of the interests of the corporation in order to fulfill its part of the agreement. The three go to the lab. In another part of the station, Andy discovers samples of biomaterials created on the basis of alien DNA. With their help, it is possible to change the human genome to adapt it to adverse conditions in the conditions of different planets in order to effectively function for the benefit of the corporation. Realizing that it will be necessary to make its way to the ship through groups of xenomorphs, Andy offers to stock up on weapons. Tyler explains to Raine how to handle the machine gun, which is every Counter-Strike player's dream. They continue their movement over a narrow bridge framed by walls decorated in the likeness of xenomorphs, reminiscent of Zerg Crypt. Inside these walls are cocoons that hold captured people. Among them, Kay is not yet infected with the parasite. Judging by her condition next to the dead face piece, Tyler takes her out of the cocoon. Andy offers to inject the girl with an experimental serum. Reaching the elevator, they encounter the xenomorph, and Raine inserts himself between the threat and Kay himself finds himself dragged into the unknown, where the xenomorph punches his head with his throat shut. Andy receives a blow with his tail, which again puts him in a suspended state. Taking advantage of the moment, Raine manages to push Kay into the elevator and goes upstairs. Along the way, she is tormented by a conscience that presses on her harder than alien monsters. Around, she decides to go back for Andy, sending her friend on. One of the wounded Kay is worried about the fate of her child and begins to drive an experimental drug. Descending the stairs, she attempts to create an artificial brother by pushing, but he resists. Fearing that the corporation's firmware will blow up, Raine convinces him that it would be more profitable for the company if he could do at least something, after which he removes his hand from the USB port on his neck to roll Andy back to the factory. The girl notices that the monsters have almost surrounded them, and they begin to retreat from the elevator, moving along the corridor. Once in a dead end, she refuses to open because there is no point in these efforts. The samples will still be an okay. She just needs to press the button, and then the court will be driven on autopilot. She will return home, trapped. Raine starts thinking about how to shoot the xenomorphs. So, their acid hasn't damaged the hull. It activates the cleanup mode by disabling gravity, and then, with Andy's help, starts firing. The swirl created by bullets from the rifled barrel twists the acid blood in a spiral straight in the air, not allowing it to come into contact with anything. The walls are shot at creatures, and Raine swims in weightlessness among acid clouds, trying to avoid unwanted collisions. The girl even uses the submachine gun as a jet engine to avoid getting into trouble. As a result, they get to the elevator shaft and, closing the lattice, climb up into the elevator. His gravity with excess acid in the formed hole begin to break through monsters, from which one escapes Andy. Noticing this, they break on the stairs to catch their sister before gravity activates, and they are literally 1 meter short. Gravity pulls Raine down, and another creature intercepts her on her way. The xenomorph nearly broke his neck from the sudden stall. At this point, the acid destroys the plating of the station, reaching a seal, and the airflow blows the monster away. Andy holds the falling elevator, but ultimately decides to let it go so it can crash into the rest of the creatures. Only the girl manages to escape, and Jareem also finds shelter. He sneaks up on Ukraine to stage an acid attack. On the other hand, Face Grabber is approaching them. Suddenly, the monsters begin to receive their portions of lead this landing. In freefall, Andy manages to pick up the weapons and armor, and together with Raine, they head further to survive this trap. Filled with horror, Raine activates the autopilot and Corbin exits the station, setting a course backwards. The girl places Cave Kriya in the capsule and disables the autopilot. To reroute, they head for Iwaguma, enough for two. However, the hands are dissatisfied with this situation, but nothing can be done. Just watching the destruction of the station makes Raine connect the index net and put it into sleep mode. When Raine sleeps, she gets an alarm. You yourself are not so scary, opening the lid. She discovers that her friend's pregnancy has accelerated and she is ready to give birth. As a result of the side effect of the experimental drug Eski manifested is an egg, resembling something alien. Raine tries to throw his stick, but is burned by acid. Dropping the egg, the girl hurries for the cryo-cannon, but it punches a hole in the floor, and as a space kolobak escapes from grandmother into the cargo hold. The damage causes the autopilot to be disabled, and the ship goes to manual control, from which it begins to descend to the surface. Raine makes his way into the hold. Surrounded by the remnants of ore, she notices the traces of a newly hatched creature that grows by the moment. Andrew just wakes up to see Kay injured and then a giant human xenomorph hybrid who has come to visit his mother. He's preparing a stinging blow to get a little half-icked up. Raine manages to leave the hold at the right moment and aims for the monster, but it easily knocks the weapon out of her hands, destroying the cylinders with cryogenic top. A sudden drop in temperature fills the space and Raine begins to freeze. Home, she tries to crawl in search of salvation. The girl finds herself in the airlock where she puts on a spacesuit to protect herself from the cold. Suddenly, the thought comes to her mind. Fastening a cable to the spacesuit, she descends into the hold to untie one of the retaining fasteners. Now she can only wait for the appearance of the chasing monster. The insidious enemy picks up from behind, and the acid, flying over it, leaves a burn, punching a hole and causing decompression. The stream of air breaks out, but the cable keeps her within the ship, and she begins to crawl back to safety. Paths and a viable hybrid is found. Despite the fact that the skin slips from the monster, he does not give up and tries to attack. Noticing the cable that holds her, the situation becomes tense, and the girl prepares to fight for survival. The girl grabbed the lever, pulling it and releasing two fasteners. The annual compartment fell down with the hybrid, while only the rope-fixed Raine remained in weightlessness. Climbing aboard, she closed the hatch, realizing that the damage had been repaired. The onboard computer activated autopilot, and Raine placed the injured Andy in a cryo chamber, pulling out a data chip to secretly send him to the planet. Then she rushed into the dark vastness of space, where no one could hear her cry, and that was the end of the story.